Good evening, everybody. How are you? This is Enrique of Spanish United. Today we have a very special guest on the show. Would you be kind enough to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Yes, this is Joseph Hancock, and I'm representing the organization known as Labor United for Class Struggle. We work closely with the Party of Communist USA, and we publish a newspaper that's called Labor Today.
Excellent.
We,
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
we also have a blog. We have a blog that's called the same thing. It's Labor Today, but it's on a website, which is www.labortoday.us.
Excellent. It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to have you on the show, Joseph.
Okay.
Perfect. Like I said, I first met you in Peter's birthday party, and I got a chance to talk to you. So let me tell you a little bit about what I do. Spanish United is a Hispanic civil rights organization that lobbies and advocates for the rights and inclusions of Hispanic people, at the same time for Hispanic workers and Hispanics that have been affected by Hispanophobia. So I work with different organizations. Doesn't matter what they belong to politically, ideology, as long as they are for the common good of the Hispanic community. So I wanted to talk about the issue of Hispanophobia. So I wanted to ask, do you think Hispanophobia or animosity towards Hispanic people has gotten worse since the previous administration, or do you think it's about the same from your point of view?
I think it's gotten worse. The things that I've observed make it clear that it's worse. You look at the present administration's approach to the border, for example, with Mexico. It's a continuation of the past. It's a failed strategy. It doesn't work. There's no movement in the Congress of any kind toward meaningful legislation to remedy the situation. And attacks against Hispanics are on the rise here in Los Angeles. There's been I don't know the percentage, but hate crimes have gone up against both Hispanics and blacks. So it's on the rise.
Yeah, and I've noticed that Hispanics are the only minority group in America that don't have any type of representation or hate crimes protection. As you know, the LGBT, the Jewish community, the African American community, and now the Asian community have hate crime protections that when someone commits a hate crime against them, it's prosecuted heavily in addition to whatever crime was committed. But when it comes to Hispanics, we're the only group that we don't have any type of protection. So it's like, I don't know if it's because we're classified as white or we're not classified really as an ethnicity, but I just noticed that, when hate crimes are committed against our people, it doesn't really get prosecuted the way that it should be. And if it does, it really falls on deaf ear. And I think it's really gotten out of control. And one of the reasons why I started Spanish United was this Salvadoran American by the name of Andres Guerrero. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. He was a security guard that was working in Gardena, and he was murdered by the police. And I don't know what came of it, but there was a lot of protests. But one thing that really bothered me, Joseph, was how people in the media demonized this kid like he was like some type of a delinquent just because he was Hispanic. He had no criminal record. He was working two jobs and he was going to medical school to become a doctor. But the stereotype and the stigma that Hispanics don't amount to anything, they made this poor kid like a like a scapegoat. And I think it's very appalling that this has become acceptable in our society.
Yeah, and it's the same way with Puerto Ricans in New York.
Hmm.
Puerto Ricanos in New York have the same stigma attached to them over there that we have here with Mexicanos and Central American people. I worked very closely in the past with the United Farm Workers, and we have a lot of farm workers who are from Mexico and they come here on work visas, and sometimes, well, it's not sometimes, all the time, they're very exploited.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to have something called the Bracero program. But I also work with the local FMLN here, which is from El Salvador. And I
Mm-hmm.
also work with the Nicas, with the Sandinistas.
Mm-hmm.
They have a base here, and so we all three organizations work together closely, and we advocate for labor rights. And one of the biggest problems with mostly with Hispanic workers, it's interesting because the Hispanics get jobs in restaurants, and they get jobs in these Chinese restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
Korean restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't pay them.
Mm-hmm.
And so they file a wage and hour complaints with the state. And some of these violations are so large, they're in the millions of dollars in back pay because they weren't paid overtime. Because, see, they hire people because they don't know the law,
Mm-hmm.
and they just assume that you go to work, you get paid, and that's the end of it. But
Mm-hmm.
they don't understand that when you work more than 8 hours, you're supposed to get overtime pay.
Right.
When you work more than 40 hours in a week, you're supposed to get paid for that.
Correct.
And that's the law. And they
Mm-hmm.
don't know the law. And
Mm-hmm.
so they get exploited. But then they realize what's happened. They haven't been paid all this money. Then they go to the state, and the state has been very aggressive. The Industrial Relations Department of California has been very aggressive in pursuing wage theft. They call
Mm-hmm.
it wage theft.
Right. Right.
And in the grocery business where I worked, um, uh, I worked for many years for a big supermarket chain, and what we did there was we had to work off the clock. So in other words, you punch out and keep working until your work is done.
Mm-hmm.
And when the union found out about that, uh, they raised hell. They made a big campaign, and they tried to pass legislation, and they did some other things. But they did a whole gigantic campaign to get the employers to change their practices, and it wasn't just in the grocery industry; it was in all of retail. Big stores, big gigantic stores like Macy's and Nordstrom and all these chains were doing the same thing. They were asking their employees to clock out and keep on working.
Mm-hmm.
And then they came up with this term. They called them associates.
Wow.
You're an associate, so be part of the team. Make a
Right.
sacrifice for the team.
Right. That's one thing that really bothers me about libertarians, and again, not to mention politics. They don't believe in wages. It's like if they had their way, workers won't even have a wage. It's like, the employers could pay them whatever they want. And I think that's dangerous because, people deserve their wage, regardless of if it's the federal minimum wage or a little bit more than minimum wage, but everyone deserves to have a living wage, regardless of politics. And it bothers me that there's so many people that believe that a living wage is bad.
Yeah, I know.
It's really
They don't
amazing.
get it.
Really amazing.
Yeah, and uh, there's a super exploitation of Hispanic people. In the old days, not so much in California, but all in the Southwest, places like Texas and Oklahoma and Colorado.
Hmm.
They used to have signs, actually put signs out front of buildings, in front of factories. It says, "No dogs are Mexicans."
Hmm. I've seen
That,
those before.
yeah, yeah, and it hasn't changed that much. Everybody's real nice and they smile, and but then they turn around and tell nasty jokes
Right.
and make nasty comments, and All my life, I've heard it. I saw a friend of mine is Chicano, and he came up with a T-shirt, and it has the Frito-Lay logo on it,
Mm.
but it says frijole. It says frijoles,
Hmm.
and then it says, "Bet you can't eat just one."
That's very, very, very
Look,
funny.
it looks just like it says Frito-Lay on it. It says frijoles.
Well, yeah, frijoles and Frito-Lay kind of sound similar.
So it's really great.
And
But,
I also wanted to ask, do you think Hispanophobia is also increasing because of the demographic change in the country? Because I recently saw that Hispanics are now 18% of the population. So Hispanics outnumber African Americans, Asians, Jews, and other minorities. And within the next couple of decades, it's gonna be majority Hispanic. So do you feel that Hispanophobia is intensifying because people do not want to see a majority Hispanic country?
oh, absolutely. And if you look at the people in Congress and white people my age, uh, they're very fearful of that. And they run to Jesus, and they say all this stuff about keep these people away from me. God save us. We have to have a white nation and all this kind of shit.
Mm.
Pardon my language.
No, it's
Uh,
fine.
we have a lot of people that they do this. They say that 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 we're a white Protestant nation,
Hmm.
and so that pretty much excludes all Hispanics,
Hmm.
uh, and from anywhere. So even from Europe, I mean, from Spain,
Hmm.
uh, anybody that's Hispanic that has a Hispanic surname is going to get attacked,
Hmm. And
and that's just
I'm seeing it that it's getting out of control. Like I've seen it personally, like with my family. I've seen it with people that I know, and I just feel that it's just getting out of control because it's like you have Hispanics that have been here for generations, that many of them don't speak Spanish, and many of them are treated and seen as they were foreigners. You don't really see it that much in California, but you see it more like in the Midwest where Hispanics really don't exist, and the abuse is more it's more open.
right.
It's appalling.
Yeah, it is. So it's just a very bad scene all around, and we do what we can over here. Most of the people in my neighborhood are illegal, um, and they work in these small businesses like Winchell's Donuts and places like that. A lot of them are from Guatemala, and
Hmm.
there seems to be a wave of immigrants now from Guatemala.
Well, yeah,
Uh,
because what's happening with the gangs in Central America, it's very bad.
yeah, they had that big gang that started right here in Los Angeles. It started over on uh, Normandy and San Marino Street.
Hmm.
It was like right there by oh, what's the name of that park? I always call it Normandy Park, but that's not the name of it.
MacArthur Park.
Seoul International Park. It's in right in the middle of Koreatown,
Oh, okay.
and
That's very cool.
there's a big baseball field there. It's right off of Olympic, and there's a big baseball field there, and it's a really nice park. And so the Salvadoran youth used to get there and meet there, and they formed a gang called Mara Salvatrucha to
Hmm.
protect them from the Mexican gangs. They
Right,
had Mexican street gangs, and they used to beat them up all the time.
right.
So they formed this Mara Salvatrucha. Well, now this Mara Salvatrucha is global,
Hmm.
and their main business is drugs.
Hmm.
and it's a big empire. And I've seen pictures of these guys, and when they get caught down there, and they like ink. I'll tell you that
Oh
they
yeah,
love their ink. Oh
yeah,
my God.
and it's very disturbing how they do their entire faces. It's like one thing is their bodies, but their entire face. It's like disturbing.
And their scalp,
Hmm.
they shave their head and they do their scalp too.
I've seen that, and then unfortunately, that's what's causing a lot of the people from Central America to come here because in Central America, like in Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, that gang, they're all over the place, and unfortunately, those governments are unstable, so they cannot really protect the people. So a lot of people are being forced to come here. Same thing with Cuba. You have people that are coming from there as well, and from Venezuela, etc. And a lot of people don't understand, especially the far right, that a lot of these people, Hispanics that are coming from Latin America, most of them are being forced to come here. It's not that they just want to come here and live off the fat of the land. That's what the far right media wants people to believe. They're fleeing because they don't have a home. They're being forced out of their home. They're fleeing because their families are in danger. And unlike Europeans or Asians, they don't have the means or the access to come here legally. That's why they come here the way that they come here. And many of them, believe me, if they could stay in their country, they wouldn't come here. You ask anyone from any country, Joseph, doesn't matter where they're from, if they could have the same standard of living, income as they do in any first world country, no one would immigrate. Most people want to stay in their homeland. They don't want to go to another country, not know the language, not know the customs, and at the same time be discriminated against for being foreigners. No one wants to go through that, but many people are forced to leave, and that's something that the conservative base, and in many cases the liberal base, doesn't talk about, is that these people that are fleeing from Central America and Latin America are being forced to come here. It's not that they want to come here; it's they're forced to come here. And unfortunately, a lot of these people are victims of their circumstances, and it's very unfair that politics are being used against these people to push an agenda, which I think is wrong, because poverty is not a liberal issue or a conservative issue. It's a social issue that affects everyone.
Right. That's exactly right.
And
And the sad part of it is that it was the American companies that pillaged uh, Central America and Mexico. The American companies went down there and installed the dictators in the
mhm,
50s.
mhm.
Like in Guatemala, they toppled a government that was democratically elected, and they replaced him with a puppet from the United Fruit Company.
Yes.
And the Chiquita banana comes with a lot of blood on it.
Mhm. That I know, and a lot of people don't
Yeah,
don't don't know about that.
and so here on the one hand they're blaming people for coming here, but at the same time they're ignoring the fact that it was the American companies that made it necessary for them to leave,
Mhm,
to immigrate. They
mhm,
don't have a choice. And the other thing that we should address concerning immigration is that if we just got rid of the quotas on each country to immigrate, all these people could be legal tomorrow.
mhm,
They can't get visas. They can't immigrate because legally. That's why
mhm,
they're coming illegally,
mhm.
because there's no other way. And they say, well, you've broken our laws. Well, change the damn law.
Do you
You
do you
know,
do you think the quotas have to do because these are mostly from third world countries?
yeah, because if you don't have money, if you don't have any money, uh, they're not interested in you. If you don't have know-how, if you don't have like advanced education, uh, they're not interested in you.
Mm,
Uh, and there's been cases where I've seen internationally where workers have gone through agencies and they've been promised jobs in the United States as engineers,
Hmm.
using their technical knowledge,
Hmm.
and they end up working in hotels.
Hmm.
And they got their passport, they got everything, and it's all held by this agency.
Hmm.
And they have a work visa that says they're going to be doing certain work, and it's not. And then they end up working cleaning hotels, cleaning toilets, and these are highly educated and skilled workers, and they're deliberately being denied the work they were promised.
Hmm.
And they get them over here, and then they have to pay off. Then they have to pay off the agency, and so they have to work until that's paid off. And there's like a whole bunch of crooked stuff going on with immigration. It's
Oh,
really
I agree
bad.
with you. I agree with you. I do believe that the system is broken, and I do believe that there needs to be reforms. And in
Yeah,
terms and in
because
terms of poverty,
but the whole thing with the quotas, the whole things with the quotas is that if they got rid of the quotas and they said anybody can immigrate, then people would immigrate. And the only excuse that I've gotten back from them from the other side is some of these people are bad people. They're drug dealers.
right,
Trump made that statement once. He said they're
right,
all drug dealers, and you know,
they're bad people,
they're a
basically.
very small percentage. Yeah, but that's like painting everybody with the same brush.
Right, uh,
That's like if you say all Irish people are drunks,
right,
or every stereotype that there is. I mean, you can make a stereotype about everybody. You can say all Asians are bad drivers.
right,
I've heard that too.
right.
But you see, the thing is that once that gets in people's minds, that all Hispanic people are narco traffickers, and they all work for the Medellin cartel,
Right.
uh, and they glorify that. Uh, that's going to be the image that white Americans are going to see, and that's what they're going to believe.
Mm.
And so it's very important for us to do an educational program, uh, not for Hispanic people, but for white people, because white people got to understand. They got to learn. It's very hard for them. They just don't get it.
Mm.
They're so propagandized to death that there's so much propaganda from the right
Mm.
pushing this narrative that against Hispanic people,
Hmm.
and it's tough. It's going to be tough. It's a tough fight.
Yeah, that's one thing that I'm doing with Spanish United is we are trying to change the image and the stigma of Hispanic people. Like one of the things that I'm trying to do is partner with different mayors, cities, politicians, different organizations to try to create like community centers, cultural centers in different cities and different towns. Not only to keep Hispanics and Hispanic youth, to retain their culture and their customs, and also to provide uh, community service for people to learn their language, keep their culture, kind of similar to like a Boys and Girls Club, but at the same time to bring other races and ethnicities, not just white people, but also like Asians and other groups that also have a stigma against Hispanics. Because not only white Americans, you have Black Americans, Asian Americans, other minorities that also have stigmas against Hispanic people, to get them exposed to the Hispanic culture, to the Hispanic people, and show them that you have Hispanic people that are academic, that are educated, that want to be productive. Because like you said, because of the previous administration, then you have the right and you have other groups that are using propaganda to demonize the Hispanic community, especially the Hispanic male. The Hispanic male is the most stigmatized group in this country, in my personal opinion, that they're not good people. So I want to change that perception that Hispanics are educated, they are proper, they care about their hygiene, they care about being productive people. Because it's like, this cannot continue where Hispanics continue to be bashed and made a freak show by everybody else. And that's one thing that I'm trying to do is to advocate for Hispanics that don't have any rights, that don't have any representation, and also to make changes in the laws that Hispanics can get protection and have representation, because currently, just to be blunt, America is still a white and black country. Even though blacks have been discriminated for a long time, but blacks have always been recognized as being part of the country, while Hispanics have always been seen as foreigners, even though many of them have been here probably before America even started out as a country. So it's like, I want Hispanics to be recognized as a third group, as a third minority that is visible, that is here, that we're not going anywhere, and that we contribute and we give back to the community, because Hispanics are seen as people that just take, they don't contribute, they just take. So I want the image of the Hispanic to change, that Hispanics are also generous, Hispanics also donate, Hispanics also help other people that are not Hispanic. So that way any hostility can change, but that can only change through education. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. You know, it has to be through education. And it doesn't matter how much money people could throw at it. You could pour a bunch of money, but if you don't have advocates and people that care enough to actually get involved. Hello. 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 Hello, Joseph. We kind of
Oh,
got
there we
this.
go.
We
Hi.
got disconnected.
Yeah, I got disconnected. Yeah, we're back.
Anyway, were you able to hear the last thing that I mentioned, or no?
Yeah, I was hearing when you were talking about explaining to the broader community about the generosity of Hispanics and the other things, good qualities that Hispanic people bring to the United States.
Yes, because
And
it's very important that, you know, people see that Hispanics are people that care and that are generous, not people they just, you know, hoard and take or are opportunities, because that's the image and perception that Hispanics are seen in the United States.
yeah, that's pretty much it. Around here, you know, this Southwest, this part particular, used to belong to Spain.
Mm-hmm.
I forget which king it was, but they sent the missionaries over here.
Yeah, that's where
They built the
missions
mission
were.
system. Yeah, and those were all built by the Franciscans.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Franciscans worked directly with the King of Spain and the church, and they built the whole community over here. But they used to control all the land here.
Mm-hmm.
So the city of Los Angeles was actually it wasn't even Mexico at that time.
Right. It was
I mean,
part of the Viceroy of Spain.
yes, yes. And so that's why now they try to deny that. They try to forget about all that. Well, that never happened.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't do that.
I
History is
agree with you.
history. You cannot do that, and there's no reason why they should do that.
I
They should
agree with you.
acknowledge their Hispanic heritage,
I
and
agree
they
with
should.
you.
And that's part of the problem of education of the white settlers. You know, most of the white settlers that came here came from the South.
Mm-hmm.
They came from, you know, after the Civil War, they migrated here,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where they still have those, you know, racist attitudes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Or a lot of them came from the Midwest also,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
and we had a big migration from the Midwest during the Dust Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was another reason why they had no contact with Hispanic people.
Right.
And
Right.
now in those states like North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, all those states now have huge Latino populations.
Mhm.
Even in states like Georgia, there's a factory where I get my tortillas from. I go to the store and I get tortillas, and they're made by some factory in Norcross, Georgia.
Mhm.
You
That's
know,
really amazing.
so yeah, and so they're like the Mexican companies are operating up here now and doing business up here. And they bought the largest bakery in the United States. They bought Oro Wheat.
Mhm.
There's a bread that they make in Mexico. It's called pan bimbo,
Mhm.
and so now they sell that here. Um, but they actually bought the bimbo actually bought uh, the Oro Wheat bread company. They bought the whole thing. So they got Entman's Donuts, and they bought the whole operation.
Yeah,
And
I've seen that.
so it's like that's because of NAFTA. That
Right,
happened because of NAFTA.
right.
Yeah,
Well,
and so that has a lot to do with it too. Is that there's a lot of scapegoating going on.
right.
They're stealing our jobs. They're taking our work from us. And the same thing is happening with the Chinese. All our jobs are going to China. Well, actually, what's going to China is the American companies are moving to China. It isn't that the jobs are going to China. The American companies are actually picking up and moving to China.
Right.
Their
Of
whole
course.
operation,
Exactly.
and they're operating in these free enterprise zones
Right.
where they can operate, and they're exempted from Chinese labor laws.
Mm.
Chinese have very good labor laws, but they don't apply in the free trade zones.
That's that's true.
So
It's very
so
true.
what happens is these American companies, big companies like Coca-Cola and what's that other one, the big one?
Pepsi.
Well, no, Pepsi's not so much, but there's another big one that McDonald's. McDonald's is big over there,
Mm.
and they have some other big companies that make all their stuff there. And then
Mhm.
they ship it back over here.
Right. So they make it cheap over there, and then they sell it expensive when they come over here.
Yeah, the same thing with TVs. You know, they're made over there in China. Then the electronic stuff is all made there, shipped over here, and they sell it for $1,000. It probably cost them 40 cents to make.
Exactly. Well, this is all the time that we have, Joseph, but I really thank
Okay,
you so much for being on my show. Hopefully,
okay,
hopefully the connection didn't get disrupted, so the whole thing will be processed. But I will send you the link as soon as I'm done.
okay, great.
It was a pleasure talking with you, and have yourself a wonderful evening.
Okay, you too.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Okay, bye-bye.